Welcome everyone to another episode of Your Lab Central. Today I'm joined with Eric. So Eric, would you like to tell everybody why they should be excited about our conversation?
Yeah, I've been on a journey kind of the past couple of years where I've been trying to figure out asking some big questions like what makes a good life.
Okay.
Uh and I think one of the things that I've come to is that there is a better life out there that's possible for all of us.
Yeah.
Uh and I've come upon some of the important elements that make up a good life. The three things that I talk about most are true community
Mm-hmm.
and purpose. We need purpose for our lives as well, and then just a restful sense of well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So I started a podcast a while back that explores those themes of community, purpose, and rest. It's
Mm-hmm.
called The Better, and I think a better life is out there for all of us if we just look in the right places. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Now there's a sense of positivity that you're exuding and how you're talking about things, right? And just the general idea of what you've talked about, true community purpose and a restful sense of well-being. How are you connecting it with positivity? How are people to reacting to it? What do you see?
yeah. So there's with the with the way the world is, like
Yeah.
we experience lots and lots of unrest and anxiety, and I think that a lot of that has to do with just the amount of information we have access to.
Hmm.
Um, there's so many things going on in the world, and we as human beings we're meant to be able to process a small community, not a worldwide community. In some ways, I think that there's a sense in which we all kind of have to interact with people outside of our particular tribes or outside of our particular communities,
Hmm.
and that's a really important part of this. But I think that we're so inundated with that worldwide community, with
Yeah.
friends on Facebook that you haven't talked to in 50 years, right? Like, or just the news cycle that's 24 hours. And so one of the things that does, I think, is it opens us up to a lot of vulnerability
Hmm.
that that sometimes we're not ready for. And so what we do to guard ourselves from all of that vulnerability, seeing all of the terrible things going on in the world,
Hmm.
uh, is we start to kind of isolate ourselves and wall ourselves off. And so even in like the social media realm, which is supposed to be this like, hey, we're a worldwide community, we put on these facades, we put on these faces that aren't really us.
Hmm.
They're a version of us usually, but there's a lot missing. And so we create these relationships with all of these avatars,
Yeah.
and we don't really get a sense of true relationship, true community with everybody on our social media feeds. And so then we just get overwhelmed with like, oh man, this person has all of these cool things going on in their lives, and my life's kind of boring. And it creates this giant mess of isolation and solitude, but also like a two interconnectedness.
Yeah.
uh and so our balances are all off. Like our I think that life is all about maintaining harmony between our really close relationships and our more external relationships.
Hmm.
um, the first essential relationship that we have to manage is ourselves, right? Like we
Yeah.
need to have a good relationship with ourselves. And in my belief system, there's a sense in which you have to connect that self to a transcendent self or a transcendent being of some sort, and to allow yourself to say, yeah, I'm a good person. I'm not perfect,
Yeah.
and that's okay. But but I am truly loved and accepted, and I belong. So that then you can move out to the next kind of circle, which is your family, and then from there move on out to kind of mentors or wise friends, and then out to like a greater like neighborhood or community sense. And then finally, after all of those things, when you're able to be secure in those relationships, when you're able to be vulnerable in those relationships, after that, then you can kind of connect to that wider world, and that's, I think, where we start to see our purpose come. Like,
Okay.
how can I affect everything else
Yeah.
around me? And so I think that it's a challenge right now to find that positivity. And it's something that I think is, when we look for it, uh, we can find it, but it is different than I think we think it is most of the time, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. So
Yeah, I definitely relate to that. And thanks for bringing that point up about 24/7 news and social media itself. The constant bombardment of information that comes in, especially through news channels and then any other form of social media, where both of them have kind of digressed from what they were supposed to be doing.
yeah,
News are supposed to be about just telling about what is happening rather than bombarding you with information which is not, I don't know if you can say being relevant or not, but then, yeah, that's a different debate altogether if every news is news, right? And
right.
and then the other part which I want to touch upon, social media, right? Now, social media started as a endeavor basically to bring people together, but now
Right.
it's creating that negativity of, I don't know, FOMO, or just
Yeah.
looking at something that you think you don't have, but the other person has, and it's probably just a form of content that the person has made, basically, so to show other people. What do you have to say to that? How do you manage that?
Yeah. So I think the fundamental ingredients that make up a relationship, in my estimation, as I've kind of been exploring this, is just presence,
Hmm.
like being with somebody. And there is a sense in which you can do that physically, and you can do that digitally as well. Uh, but that presence can't be just a a I'm here in the room with you, or I'm here online with you. It has to be something where you're physically or emotionally or spiritually or relationally vulnerable to that other person. We when we're present with somebody in a room, I think that's really easy to find that sense of vulnerability, because like that person can get up and punch you in the face, right? And then you will be hurting, depending on how strong they are, whatever. But
Yeah,
but online, it's really easy to short circuit that vulnerability.
yeah.
It's easy to hide, um, and you can hide when you're in a room with another person. You can shield yourself from that person, but I think that's much easier in a digital sense. But so you need that presence. You need to
Yeah.
be there, vulnerable, and that kind of thing. But you also need to have some sort of a response. So if you're standing in a room with, and there's like two people in the room, and you're just staring at opposite walls, like that's not a relationship, right? There is a sense in which you have to respond to that person, and part of that is accepting who they are really. So when they're present with you, when they're vulnerable with you, giving them the permission or the security to fully be there,
Yeah.
and not like attack them for that. And so I think it's really hard in a digital sense, when it's so easy to hide, when it's so easy to kind of talk past one another.
Mhm.
I think it's hard to find that presence and response that really creates true relationship. It's not impossible,
Hmm.
But I think it's harder. It's kind of like the other day I was thinking about AI,
Yeah.
the generative AI stuff that's out there. Uh, I've gone on, Chat GPT and tried to, get it to give me stuff. And, you can say, hey, write me a story about a frog that's, jumping over a mountain or something. And then it'll generate this whole story for you.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to do that. But when you kind of settle for that shortcut, you don't actually get uh, something that's creative, something that's from you. You get something that is just kind of mishmash of random ideas that were pulled from all over the internet and that kind of thing. And it doesn't feel authentic, and and it doesn't feel uh, like true creativity. It doesn't quite have that human element to it. And I'm sure that at some point they will be able to make it so that it's crazy and it's hard to tell whether a human wrote this or whether the computer wrote this. And that's all fine and good. I'm not against like technological advancements, but I do think that a lot of times technological advances give us these shortcuts, and we think they're magic buttons that make everything better. But every time a technology advances, the only thing they tell you about is, oh, well, now you can do this thing. What
Yeah.
they don't talk about all that often is, well, now you have to do this other thing in order to keep up, in order to operate in this world. Like when I was a kid, I didn't have a cell phone, but
Right.
nowadays it'd be crazy to kind of walk around and not have a cell phone.
Mhm.
And so there's trade-offs in every technological advancement that comes along. It's just, I think we need to be able to notice what those trade-offs are and design our lives in a way that doesn't necessarily, avoid all of those technological advancements, but live our lives in such a way that we don't always just take the easy technological way,
Mhm.
and that we force ourselves uh, to really invest who we truly are with other people, because I think relationship is a huge part of finding that true community and purpose and rest in our lives.
Now, since we're talking about creating a true community, how have you seen the community building process change? I mean, there's one way that you go out into the wild and you create a group of people. You find a person, talk to him, talk to them, and then you find that you connect, and then you create a community. You find another set of people. But then
Yeah.
you go online, you go on Reddit, you go on Facebook, you say, I'm creating a group, you try to publicize it, or you just create a page. How are these two communities different when they're being built? Okay.
Yeah. Uh, I think with the old way,
Hmm.
um, and really, I have a hard time necessarily speaking to a larger context than maybe my own life, right? So when I was a kid, I just sat down with a few of the guys that I grew up with in high school and that kind of thing, and we had these really tight relationships.
Yeah.
I haven't spoken to them for maybe a decade or so before I had this conversation with them, and when I walked in the room and they were there, it was like all of a sudden we were back in high school. Like
Yeah.
all of a sudden we flipped a switch and we're there and we're friends and we're talking, we're catching up and all that kind of stuff. But we just immediately kind of went back into these stories of our youth, right? Oh
Yeah.
man, remember that time when we did this, and remember that time when we did this, and uh man, we were stupid kids doing crazy stupid things, right? Um and there's a sense in which that kind of community that we built as kids, really it was built on this this innocence
Hmm.
where we didn't know any better, and so we were just goofy and crazy, and we did dangerous things. um and luckily we didn't die, and and all that kind of good stuff. We didn't know any better, and so our innocence allowed us to be vulnerable with one another before we really even knew that there was like a whole lot of danger in being vulnerable with other people, before we knew that, like, well, if I share my true self with another person,
Mhm.
they might come back and really harm me, right? And I think in this day and age, um, uh, I don't see a whole lot of that kind of just kids being kids in the world.
Right.
Like where I was growing up, like there would be kids on the road all the time
Mhm.
riding their bikes and that kind of thing, and without their parents. Like when I was a kid, like I rode my bike like two whole towns away from the town I grew up in to go see my friend Kenny, you know. And these days, I've got two kids of my own. They're a little older, but when they were little, it was like, no, you can't ride your bike two towns over. Yeah, you can ride around the block and then come back home. You know, that kind of thing. Because I think we're hyper aware of the danger that's out there. We build these hyper walls around ourselves. Parents become these these shelters for their kids, and that's always the way it is, right? But and that's appropriate, like,
Right.
but there's also a sense in which there was danger when I was growing up. There was bad people. Like I'm sure that I rode my bike past plenty of bad people when I was riding my bike to two towns over. uh there was danger there, but it was like we were a little bit innocent of it, and maybe even our parents were a little bit innocent of it. But nowadays we see all of it, like it's
Yeah.
all shared, and that's a good thing, but it's like the technological trade-off thing. Like we know more, and so we can be more hyper vigilant, but we're also stressed out all the time about how much danger there is, and we're not able to allow ourselves to be as vulnerable anymore because we know that the danger is there. And and so I think that nowadays, with the whole digital community building thing, uh, I think it's the same thing where we know of the danger, and so we put up these avatars and these false versions of ourselves so that we can't get hurt, because we know that the hurt is out there. Um, but then again, it's like, uh, we we also have this sense in which we could be super vulnerable with one another, if we would allow ourselves to be, even in a digital sense,
Mhm.
a social media sense. Yeah.
Now, when a person is face to face, right, something similar to what we are right now, we have this thing that, yeah, we have to either be real or else the other person would judge us, or there is that fear, right? But when you go online,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, we have avatars, we create masks. Obviously, people create masks in the real world as well. But then when they go online, the mask is on a whole different level. It's less of a mask, more of a wall, right? So
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
and so just wanted to understand as to when people go online, they have this whole new personality that they create, right? And try to get into different communities, try to identify as different people, and then destroy the whole purpose of the community sometimes. Uh, Say they're not there to be a part of the community, but to actually bring it down or something of that sort. How
Yeah.
would you suggest somebody handling something like this?
Slowly and surely. I think one of the things that we've lost the art of is building trust, or
Hmm.
slowly learning how to trust.
Yeah.
Uh, And so I think that one of the things that we have to do when we start any sort of a real relationship is we have to figure out right at the beginning, well, where do I place my trust level?
Mhm.
Do I build a wall about yay high, or do I lower it a little bit?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times when we really connect with somebody, oh man, we like the same things, we're into the same
Yeah.
whatever. It's easier to kind of lower that a little bit lower than if we don't really feel that initial connection,
Mhm.
right? And so I think that's why that's how like the love at first sight or dating relationships, a lot of times they start and the barriers, the boundaries are way too low
Yeah.
at the start because we feel this instant connection, and this person could never hurt me because they're so cool and I
Yeah.
like them and they're pretty or whatever, right? And so we start off way too low, and we stay there a lot of times where we're opening up, we're being vulnerable,
Mhm.
and if the relationship ends, then we're devastated, a broken heart, all that kind of stuff. But if the relationship continues, at some point there's gonna be a moment uh, where that person oversteps your boundaries, where
Yeah.
that person does something and it hurts you,
Mhm.
and you're going to have to decide, well, uh, do I continue to invest in this relationship, or do we let this relationship die or go away or whatever?
Mhm.
But also, you're going to have to decide, well, where should my boundary have been, right? Like, should I have been up here a little bit more and let that trust grow more naturally over time once I've seen this person be reliable in these things? And and so I think I've been married for about 20 years, and uh, and what I've seen in my relationship is when we first started, our boundaries were too low. We were just like in love, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And as time went on, there was this period of time, a few years into the relationship, where I was like, is this going to work? Is this going to continue to go? And we had to make a decision whether we would fight for the relationship or whether we would uh, just fight each other, right? And so we decided our decision was to fight for the relationship, and it took a lot of work. It took a lot of being purposefully vulnerable with one another in a safe way. And really, what that is saying, "Hey, look," to the other person, "I'm going to be vulnerable, and and I just want to be able to trust you to be vulnerable in this way," and kind of stepping out on faith that that other person's going to meet you there. And sometimes that's a good idea, sometimes that's not a good idea, depending on the relationship, depending on the other person, depending on the history, right? uh, and I think that a lot of times the way you figure out how to do that is with another person in that conversation. So we went to a marriage counselor, and they kind of helped us through some of that bumpy road. But uh, and sometimes that's what you need. You need another person to
Yeah.
kind of build that bridge. But I think it's all about slowly building trust over time, allowing the trust to build as far as you're able to. Um, but also looking at that relationship realistically as much as you possibly can, because we always get clouded with feelings, with when
Yeah.
it comes to relationship. So allowing yourself to think rationally, and part of that is asking your friends, hey, is this a good idea to trust this person? And if they say no, actually listening to them, and that doesn't necessarily mean you like break off the relationship, but it does mean maybe I should take my feelings with a grain of salt. Maybe I should look at my trust level with a grain of salt and allow them to have some input on what I'm not seeing, because we all have things that we don't see. But I think really what it is, it's a process of growing in trust, a process of building up barriers, but also letting your barriers kind of fall a little bit at a time when it's appropriate.
Right. Now, I know. So what have you been doing these past few years? Are you helping people out personally? Are you doing it in groups? What kind of work are you doing?
Yeah, so one of the things that I do is I've been the one of the reasons I kind of started this journey was I got a master's degree in theology and biblical studies, and so I was asking these big questions.
Okay.
And as I was asking these questions, I got fired from a job that I was on, and I was like, oh man, all of these big questions. I'm going through this life change and transition, and I needed a place to kind of process these thoughts.
Okay.
And so I started doing a podcast called The Better True Community Purpose and Rest, and I started processing through all of these ideas, and in that process, uh, I've done a bunch of I just kind of started doing a bunch of things to help build community. Like, so one of the things that I do is in my neighborhood, here in just a few weeks, we have the 4th of July. And so we're going to do like a bike parade. So I started a bike parade for my community where the whole idea is we just want to create something beautiful as a neighborhood together. And so I'm inviting all of my neighbors to decorate bikes, and then we've got like the things to shut off the roads, and all the kids will have like a bike decorating contest and that kind of thing. And the whole idea for that is just creating space for people to feel secure with one another.
Right.
And so if everybody's kind of contributing to this thing, and we're all kind of working towards a similar purpose, we can see, oh man, my neighbor might have different political views than me. My neighbor might have a different religious affiliation. They might think things differently than me. But we do have this in common. We live in the same place,
Yeah.
and we both care about uh, creating something beautiful together.
Mhm.
And so I can look at that neighbor not as just a person that lives in my neighborhood, but as a human being that is connected to me in some way. And so I think that kind of thing has been really important. But also, one of the things that I've been doing is I hooked up with a company that does like ACT training classes,
Okay.
and so I'll travel to different schools and teach teenagers how to take the ACT test that helps them get into college and all that kind of stuff. And it's been really a way for me to kind of invest in these students. And it's not just about the ACT. Like, there is a sense in which one of the things that we try to do is we try to teach these kids how to take the test, but also how to live a life that is full of purpose and meaning, to take control of the things that they can take control of, to
Hmm.
let the things that they can't take control of, like, let those slide by the wayside, so that they can really experience what they want from life. Where is it that they want to go, and how do they grab the bull by the horns? How do they find that? And so just things like that, where you can step into somebody's life even for a moment and help them, make sense of this small thing.
Hmm.
But I think that the small things are the big things too. Like,
Yeah.
one of my friends the other day, he was saying like everything's fractal, and so the small things that you encounter in life, they just scale to the big things. and
Yeah.
so and so like in my estimation, the whole like harmony of relationships, it's starting with the small stuff, like, oh,
Mhm.
my individual, I am worthy, I belong, I'm accepted,
Mhm.
and kind of moving out to the family, and then
Yeah.
moving out to the mentorship kind of relationships, then branching out to a diverse community, that's around you, and then finally to the all of creation, to all of the world, right? And so as we do that, uh, we start with the small stuff, but the small stuff is really the big stuff, because if you get the small
Yeah.
stuff right, then the
You
big
get the
stuff can kind
round.
of work
Yeah.
itself out. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Eric. I mean,
yeah,
an enlightening conversation. I'm guessing the audience also loved it and they'll have something to add or they'll have a few questions. So, yeah, looking
yeah,
forward to that as well. Thank you so much for joining in to the audience. If you like the conversation, if you felt a connection to it, do leave a like. If you want to add to it, the comments are open. If you have some questions, they're still open. And yeah, if you like the content, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks,
yeah,
Eric. Thanks for joining in.
yeah.
The
Thanks for
audience.
having me.
Thank you.